All right, let's move on to the Houston Texans, Miles. All right, obviously, this is a team been in the news a lot recently, a lot of action involving the current number 2 overall pick in the draft. And there is a new report out of Houston that is probably very shocking to a lot of Texans fans about a potential massive move the Texans could be doing in the upcoming draft.
Yeah, Nick, I think this is a really interesting story you brought up. It kind of caught me by surprise when I heard it. This would be an absolutely massive move, as you said. But, there's been some other massive moves the Texans have made in the past drafts. And these are moves that maybe didn't pan, they were going to pan out quite at first. And these are almost like, a sneaky draft steal, a player that went under the radar. The Texans grabbed him and they panned out to be really, really good. And that's what I want to know in the comments below, Texans fans. Who has been your favorite Texans draft steal of all time? A guy that slipped through the cracks, fell into the Texans' fingertips at a favorable spot, and balled out for the Texans. Let us know in the comments below, and stay tuned to the end of today's video. Hear word from the partner of today's video, Neuro. But Nick, that was a mouthful. We got through it. What is this big news on the Texans?
All right, Miles, let's get right to it. If you want to go ahead and pull up the part from the report, I'll just go ahead and read from it. This was first reported from Pro Football Talk. The Texans would have had the first pick in the draft, but for a meaningless late game win in the final weekend of the 2022 season, they now have the second pick, and they're willing to at least explore the possibility of, wait for this, Miles, trading down. GM Nick Caserio said during Monday's pre-draft press conference, quote, "Are we open for business? I would say we're open to listening." Caserio added that the Texans have gotten a few calls regarding a pick. All right, Miles, there's been a lot of speculation coming out of Houston. There's been a lot of reports. In fact, last week that D'Amico Ryans had really fallen in love with Will Anderson. There's a lot of potential reports out there. I think Adam Schefter also reported the Texans were not considering a quarterback unless it was Bryce Young. And now there's been a lot of news coming out that Bryce Young, by all accounts and purposes, will be taken by the Carolina Panthers. Number 1 overall, all the smart money, all the Vegas, everyone seems to be saying Bryce Young is going to be a Carolina Panther. Houston evidently really wanted Bryce Young, so it looks like they're not going to get him. And it means they're very open to considering trading back in the draft, which is very interesting because if you look at the draft order here, Miles, right behind them at number 4, 2 spots behind them, I should say, are their division rival Indianapolis Colts. And of course, you have the Arizona Cardinals at number 3. They have Kyler Murray, potentially not looking for a quarterback. So if the Texans don't pick a quarterback at number 2, or if they trade back, which I think they would look into, that could really blow the entire draft off the lid. Who knows what would happen? Of course, the quarterback position, and the Texans would obviously have enough capital from whatever they traded back to. And of course, they have the number 12 overall pick to make a move at a different quarterback later in the first round. All right, Miles, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of possibilities, a lot of things that look like they're really going to go crazy here in a little bit. Now that it looks like the Texans may not be going quarterback number 2 overall, I think it'd be a very interesting decision from the Houston. I'm very curious what your thoughts are on this potential, just massive move.
Yeah, and I was wondering, Nick, I was looking through mock drafts and stuff like that, thinking, okay, so we ponder the words out. All right, the Texans aren't leaking, okay, we want to trade back. There's no competitive advantage to saying we want to trade back, other than if you're actually thinking that you may want to trade back. And that is obviously because the Carolina Panthers seem to be dead set on Bryce Young. It's almost a foregone conclusion at this point that they will be picking him with the first overall pick. And so I was going through these mock drafts and seeing, all right, what are people thinking the Texans are going to do? And I've seen a really interesting one. You do say Will Anderson, but I think he's going to be pretty high up there, Nick. I have seen, though, a potential trade back to like 7 with the Raiders and getting a guy like Tyree Wilson. But I do think that the Texans do trade back and maybe try to bolster that defense a little bit. There's a couple of really great corners. There's a couple of really nice pass rushers that you could get in that top 10 range if you trade back still. So I think there's a lot of really interesting ways this could go for the Texans. So I'm really interested to see what Caserio is thinking and what they end up doing on draft night, because I do believe that this trade is not happening until everything is dead set in stone on draft night. The Panthers have to pick Bryce Young first, and once that happens, the Texans probably maybe already will have a deal worked out in the works, like say, hey, if Carolina does this, we will trade you this for this. So that's probably what I would imagine would happen here. But I'm interested to see what way they go, and I am kind of getting a feeling they may lean defense.
And I think one of the interesting things, because they have a lot of draft capital, like I alluded to a second ago, they could potentially trade back, let's say to number 7 to the Raiders, right? And then trade back up to maybe number 3 and then still end up okay and pick up maybe an extra second round pick or something like that in return, just to get, if they want to move back up into the top 5 to make a play, to get a player they really like in that situation. So they have so many options. It reminds me of what Bill Belichick once said about the draft, making sure you have a lot of draft picks and are smart within. Casario, of course, is from the Bill Belichick tree with his time in New England, is that draft picks are like your passport. If you have the right draft picks, you can go anywhere in the draft. And I will say right now, Houston can go anywhere they want, right? Obviously, Carolina dead set on Bryce Young. All eyes have shifted to Houston and Casario and company. They have the draft capital. They have the entire draft looking at them right now. And I think that's one of the things I think is really smart about this is the Houston Texans right now have taken total control of the first round of the NFL draft. Everyone right now has to call Houston or react to Houston and wait and see what Houston does, because Carolina's going Bryce Young. Now everyone's looking at the Texans at number 2 and number 12 and what everything else they could do with those picks. And everyone's going to be like, okay, we have to react to Houston. We don't know what they're going to do. So obviously there's a lot of things that could happen, a lot of speculation. I don't know what the smart move is for Houston. I really like CJ Stroud and actually really like to see him in a Houston Texans uniform, but they obviously, Casario and company, have evaluated these guys. They know who the best guys are for the team. I'm going to trust their judgment until I have reason to not trust their judgment. But no matter how you shake at this, Houston has taken total control of the draft and they can go wherever they want right now. All right, Miles, we would like to give a special thanks to our partner in today's video, Neuro.
That's right, Nick. And I want you to go with me on a journey really fast. I want you to imagine this. It's 4th and goal in the big game, Nick. Your team is relying on you to make the big-time game-winning play. I know you've been in this situation before, Nick. The stadium is roaring. The clock is ticking. The game is on the line. But if only in that moment you were able to have some Neuro Gum. Neuro Gum will help you stay concentrated, and it gives you a burst of energy without a nasty crash.
That's right, Miles. Neuro has thoughtfully curated ingredients and does endless lab testing, which means that you can reach the right state of mind safely and consistently. That's the most important part. It gives you a clean burst of energy and focus without the jitters of coffee or any of those other energy drinks.
That's right, Nick. And if you click our sponsor link in the description below, you can enjoy energy, calm, and focus whenever you need it.